Welcome to Raise Your Voice, a show that talks about progressive ideas and features some great local and regional music. I'm Laurie Donohue, and I'll be your host. I want to thank Dave Kirkpatrick for producing the show, and to Paul Belanger and Susie Brummagem for producing the show's musical IDs. My first guest today, I'm excited to introduce Dave Kirkpatrick. Dave grew up in Peterborough and graduated from the Berklee College of Music in Boston with a degree in music production and engineering. He lived for a while in Boston, but decided to return to his roots to start his family. Dave is now a studio owner and specializes in live and multi-camera video production. Dave was originally registered as a Republican, but now works actively for democratic and progressive ideas. I think it would be fun to hear from him how he made that journey. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
How are you?
There we go.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you made that change?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I don't remember much of my Republican time. I remember talking to my dad when I turned 18 about, what should I do? Which way should I go? And he gave me a very, very brief summary of the two parties. And I don't recall it all. I was trying to think of it this morning, but the Republicans, fiscally conservative, pro-guns, pro-Second Amendment, and small government, stay out of my affairs. And I like the sound of that. And I kind of was trying to think of what he said about the Democrats. I think it was sort of the opposite, a little more liberal spending, a little more buddy-any, and maybe anti-gun. I'm trying to think of what the points were. But at that time in my life, all that sounded good to me. Fiscal responsibility, of course, that makes sense. I'm a shooting sports guy, and I believe the Second Amendment, for its intended purpose, makes an awful lot of sense. And I don't like people butting into my affairs. So, I registered. I don't remember how many elections I was voting that way in. I don't even remember who I voted for. But along the way, I sort of started watching what was happening, what was reality on the ground. And the small government thing didn't turn out to work out that well. The stay out of my affairs didn't work out all that well either. And I started to notice that, every time the Republicans get in, they run up the debt and deficit. The Democrats keep fixing it. The Democrats keep thinking about protecting the citizens, like truly protecting the citizens. The folks running around with the guns didn't seem to have that, at mind much. So at some point, I just naturally, it wasn't a turning point for me. I just started observing what I was seeing and registered for the better guy at some point. Couldn't tell you when. So that wasn't a very conscious decision for me.
Was there anything specific that really hit home with you about the different ideologies? Was there, other than like the Second Amendment, was there anything else that really kind of hit home that made you think, gee, I think I need to think about a different party?
There was not really a turning point like that. So I think I began, I may have skipped a few elections when I was in college because, I had a lot of stuff to do back then. But
Sure.
When I was maybe just out of college and living in the house, it was when probably was Desert Storm happened, and it was televised. They were televising this stuff. We had seen stuff we had never seen before. They were cheering it on and rah-rah-rahing like it was some sort of sporting event. And I was just horrified by the whole thing. I could not believe, that this was a spectacle going on the television. And the next one was when the Iraq War and all the lies that led up to it were just so obvious. I mean, that's kind of when I really started saying, wow, these, I need to take action to at least have my voice heard, at least make sure I vote. And I had clearly picked a side at that point.
Yeah, I remember that war well.
Hmm.
It was disturbing when it happened, that's for sure.
It was.
So at this point, are you actively involved with trying to promote the Democratic Party or progressive ideas in any way?
Yes, I am. Certainly the progressive ideas. I would call myself more of a progressive than than a true Democrat, although I'm a registered Democrat, and I've been voting that way for a good long time. I was very much a Bernie guy,
Okay.
and have been, ever since I started, I've been kind of leaning toward the progressive side of things. But interestingly, I got my, I've been shooting a lot of political events and that kind of thing. I got my start shooting Donald Trump, of all people.
Oh, you did?
It was a paid gig. He said, "Hey, can you do this thing? Can you help us out?" And they got me through Cheshire TV to say, "Could you help us do Overflow?" And we said, "No, we don't do video production for hire. I could help you. You could hire me." But so I got hired to do this Trump rally and went, and it was just before 2016, and it was everything you'd imagine it would be.
Where was it?
That was at Keene High School.
Oh, really? I didn't even realize he was there.
He was. And, I stood in the back of the room next to a Keene State College kid and next to a Keene High kid, next to Fox and CNN and NPR and all these people, all on the press riser.
Wow.
At some point, he turns around and he points at the press riser and he's like, "And those people are dishonest. Those people," and he gave his whole look at the press thing, and this whole stadium full of people turned around and glared at us. And it was just like, what the heck is going on? So I survived that one. I didn't chase him around in the evening after that. I was going to go, see if I could get him to answer a question or something. And after that, I wasn't going into the crowd. So after that, the next thing I hit was Bernie.
Oh, you
as a
did?
Volunteer, all on my own, because I had seen Trump get all this airtime, and I had seen Bernie get almost nothing. And the networks kept pumping what Trump was doing. So that was my thing. I'm a public access guy. I was. And that's what I'm still trying to do, is just give people their voice, and for whatever audience I can gather, let the progressives be heard, and let the down ticket candidates be heard, because I think that's a really important part of what's going on.
So what impressed you about Bernie when you were filming him?
Everything he says rings true, and almost nothing I heard out of the other side, any of them, makes very much sense. So he spoke to all the issues that really matter to us, and he had progressive plans to address those things. Medicare for all, and the living wage, and the military-industrial complex. I mean, he said everything that I've known to be true my whole life. And he was a little gruff. Of course he is. Like every time, it's the same show every time. Yeah. And I like to say to people, I wouldn't go see another Bernie speech, because I've heard it all. I'm there. I'm good. But I've taped him probably 4 or 5 times. Very similar message. It's as much fun to go talk to the people in the crowd as it is for me to see him again, because I know how that goes.
Yes, well, he has some really enthusiastic followers, that's for sure. So I'm sure it's always an interesting and fun experience to be at one of his rallies.
It is.
Yeah, I'm sure. So Dave, I think we're going to take a quick break here, and I want to introduce our first musical performer. His name is Alistair Mook. He's a Boston Music Awards nominated singer-songwriter and a Grammy-nominated family music performer. The Boston Globe calls him one of the town's best and most adventurous songwriters. And you can find out more about Alistair on his website, mookmusic.com. And here he is singing his song, Make It Great.
Love it or leave it, it's us against them. We're gonna make it great once again. This once was the land of the free and the brave. We all had it good here, except for the slaves. When we came here, this country was pure and pristine. The skies were all blue and the trees were all green. We fought for the rights of the nation we'd build, and all here rejoiced except the natives we killed. And then we built cities and roads and great ports, protected by brave men aloft in great forts. And then came the railroads that stretched to the seas. We all had it good unless you were Chinese. Then Abraham Lincoln, the guy with the beard, said no more to slavery, so that disappeared. And that was the end of race problems. We know black people were equal except for Jim Crow. The late 1800s were elegant, grand, Victorian houses and trust in the land. The right to your income and vote you possessed for all of us here, barring those who had breasts. Then depression and war kind of soured some years, but we all pulled together and got back in gear. Freedom secured in the home of the champs, offer not valid in internment camps. The 50s, that's when things really improved. The GI Bill and your mortgage approved. Employment was high and the future was bright for everyone, all of us, if you were white. And that's what we mean by be great again. Let's get ourselves back to where we were when freedom, prosperity, peace all prevailed for the Caucasian, Christian, straight, middle class male. Love it or leave it, it's us against them. We're gonna make it great once again. This once was the home of the brave and the free, the world's greatest nation, if you looked like me.
Thank you, Alistair. That's a great, great song. And we're back now with Dave, and we're going to talk a little bit more about democratic and progressive ideas. I had a couple of questions for you, Dave. What do you think is the most important thing we as Democrats can do to make a change in Washington and in Concord this fall?
This is one of my favorite questions because I'll tell you the answer first, but I should tell you the story first. Okay. So it's a Monadnock Progressive Alliance meeting, and they asked this question in a big circle of people. And I kept hearing great answers. I kept hearing people say, saving the planet is the most important thing we can do. I agree. And then people were saying clean energy. We have to stop with the fossil fuels. That ties into that. Clean energy is what we need. I'd agree. We all need healthcare. Like healthcare in America is a dire situation. I would certainly agree. There were so many good things that they needed. Social justice was a big thing. Living wage and all that kind of stuff. And when it got to me, and I kind of had this in my head, but I realized that all those problems that I believe are important, are super important, cannot be solved. None of them can be solved until we get the money out of politics. If the people writing the big checks are writing the rules, until there's a change, until there's finance reform, overturn Citizens United, public campaign finance, nothing else can change. We're not going to make any progress on any of that stuff. So that they were all great points, but I think get the money out is the first thing.
You know, it's funny that you say that because I worked on Elizabeth Warren's campaign during the primary.
Yep.
And that was one of her main points, is that there's so much corruption and there's so much money in politics that it's almost impossible to get anything done until we start with that.
Yep.
The other, like I said, the other ideas are, and the other issues are so important, and we need to do something about them. But if you can't get the corruption out of Washington, you're not going to be able to move forward with any of these really, really important issues. So I'm with you on that. I think that's completely correct. Yeah. What do you think about New Hampshire? Where do you see our main issues?
Well, I sort of have a leadership problem with New Hampshire. Our governor acts an awful lot like our president. So I see that being an issue. You know, we have one of the lowest minimum wages, just period. And I think that's a tremendous problem. I think that's an it's an underthought about problem. It's just the background all the time, just simmering. But I mean, it's incredibly important that people who spend full time working can afford a home and can afford their bills. You know, certainly the pipeline that they're talking about is related to most of that stuff. It barely serves anybody in New Hampshire other than big business, and it's a very dangerous prospect, and it's just going to be that's going to be a bad situation going forward. Something else that was just right on my tongue.
I was impressed with the way the governor was handling the coronavirus pandemic, and the way you know, he was shutting down the state. I thought he was doing the right steps, and so I was impressed with what he was doing. But it seemed to be short-lived, because now, especially with the school reopening, it seems like he's kind of abdicated his responsibility with that. And I thought, why are you doing this? Why are you were so good leading us through this, and now it seems like he's going back to the same old, kind of in lockstep with the Trump administration.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I actually should have thrown coronavirus in with the troubles in the state. Of course, that's in every state right now. But yeah, I think they're following too much with the idea that the economy is going to be too badly hurt if we don't all just dive back in. But there's going to be nothing, you know, it's not going to work. If we get really, really sick and locked down, it's going to be worse, you know, worse the second time around.
And you know, all the other New England states are mandating masks, which makes sense. I mean, the science is there. You can't argue with the science that they put out about how masks can stop this thing in its tracks. But he's not putting in you know, a requirement for masks throughout the state. And I don't understand that. It's a simple thing that can make a huge difference. Why isn't it's a no-brainer, if you ask me.
That seems like top down to me. I mean, our president refused to wear a mask, refused to say that was important. That gave everybody underneath him just as much right, if you will, to say that also, you know. And it takes clear leadership. And there's an argument going around, of course, everybody's heard it, that it's unenforceable, that it's not 100%, you know, but I don't buy any of that stuff. There's a lot of things that are unenforceable that are still the law. If you let people just use their best judgment, use your best judgment driving in a school zone, use your best judgment flying down the highway. We don't do that. We don't give people the benefit of the doubt in these deadly situations. And it's not a terribly big deal to just say, you know, lead by example. I've been wishing for that.
Right, and I think they have taken something that's a public health issue and turned it into a political issue. This should not be a political issue. This is about people's health, your health and my health, our neighbor's health, our family's health. And now it's about whether it's my civil right to be able to wear it or not wear it. I mean, it's completely turned around the issue into something that it shouldn't be.
I'd agree. And, you know, it's like wearing a seatbelt as well. It's you know, there are arguments that it's not going to save you. It's, you know, it's not going to prevent transmission. People still get sick and all this kind of stuff. But really, you know, you don't expect an accident. You know, people not wearing seatbelts, they might live their whole lives and never put on a seatbelt. You might put on your seatbelt and, you know, die in a crash.
Right.
So there's no guarantee. If we were just modeling the good behavior, that's what we should really be doing.
Exactly. Yep. So Dave, we're coming up on the election in November, and I'm going to vote. I'm sure that you're going to vote too. What do you think that we can do? One of the reasons why Hillary Clinton wasn't voted in last presidential election is that we didn't get people excited enough to get to the polls. So what do we do this time around to make sure that we get out there and get people to vote?
Yep. I can't tell you how many times I've driven up the street on my way to work or the store, and it's a Tuesday and there's people out in front of the town hall with signs. And I go, what is it? It's what they're voting for, you know, some little election, some little thing coming up. I think getting the word out and getting the word out early. There should be people standing in the streets every few days, a month ahead. You know, you really got to beat people over the head with the fact, especially the primary coming up. You really got to let people know it's coming up. With that in mind, the primary is September 8th, and the election is November 3rd. And they're saying that the absentee ballots are going to take a long time. They're saying give 2 weeks for the post office to get the stuff back and forth.
Wow, really?
So people get out early, you know, tell your friends, say it now, say it wherever you can, remind people if that's coming up. Just keep reminding, get out there and do it.
Now I had heard that it's kind of a cumbersome process to do an absentee ballot. Is that the truth?
I don't think so. I think it's well, my family all has their absentee ballots. You know, if you start now, you'll get them in the mail, put them in the mail early, they're going out. I'm not the one who did it for this family, but I don't think it's been terribly difficult, and I don't think it's certainly any harder than getting yourself.
Well, let's hope we get everybody out there to vote this September as well as November.
Absolutely.
So we are now going to move on to our last musical performance. I think at this point, I just want to thank you, Dave, for your introspective and perspective on, and I'm sure that we will speak again soon. Our next performer is Cozy Sheridan. She studied voice at Berklee College of Music in Boston. She now teaches classes in songwriting, performance, and guitar workshops and adult music camps across the country. You can find out more about her at her website, cozysheridan.com. Here she is performing her song, My Fence and My Neighbor.
When the neighbors first moved in, I'm the one who built the fence. I'm the kind who can hold out her hand if I know my line of defense. We are living in interesting times. The sky falls every day, and I knows how to set and bend a rule. And I don't know that much about her, but I've dropped in and we've talked at her store. And each time I come away wanting to know a little bit more. And this morning all I know is I want to fall down and cry. This morning I don't need my fence, I need my neighbor on the other side. I'm not the first one to protest, and I'm the last one with a sign. And I mostly want to be left in peace to make my pretty designs. And I don't know from trade agreements, I don't understand all I hear. But I wasn't certain when the name